So, Moyse 24 Studies number 1. This, I think, is one of the hardest of the whole book, and yet it comes right at the beginning. It doesn't look difficult. It's in C major, it's in 4/4. There aren't any tricky fingerings to negotiate, but there are so many things to work on, such as how we start the phrase, how we show a clear repeated note, how we make sure that the intonation doesn't suffer at the ends of phrases, etc. And then how we build phrases. So there's so many things to work on, but it really helps you in your repertoire, because once you work a lot on this, you'll find that your pieces sound 10 times better because you're working on in such detail. So the first little thing that I'd like to work on is how we start each note of the phrase. And so if we sing the first phrase, so it starts on a G. We don't start, I don't think, with a consonant. And if we think of the character of this study, it's not something that's very spirited and energetic, that needs something very clear in the attack of the note, but it's more vocal and cantabile, more calm. So I would go for an attack which is softer. And if you notice how you sing, feeling the air travelling first before we hear the voice. So that's what we want to try and emulate on the flute. So try to blow a little bit higher, get the air moving, and as you start to blow, introduce the air slightly further down by bringing the jaw and lower lip back a little bit more. So you could think of the word wah, wah. So the lower lip's forward and it comes back. Okay, so there's that slight floating in of the sound, which I think is really expressive. If you did it with very clear attack, it kind of ruins the character of the piece. And that is an attack that you can use in another piece. For example, like Mozart Concerto in G, dum dum ba dum. That needs a clear attack, but I think here it doesn't. Where we do need to use the tongue is in the second bar of each phrase. So we have repeated notes, and on the repeated note we need to use the tongue. But I don't think we need to use the tongue at the very beginning of each phrase. Okay, so let's practice this soft attack on a G, starting from pianissimo, and as you play each G, just try it a little bit stronger, but keeping the attack soft. Good. Okay, so that's soft attack. The next thing that I'd like to work on is the meter, and what we're going to do is just play the first note of each bar or measure and do a slight diminuendo on each note. And this is because when we're in 4/4 or common time, the first beat needs to be stronger than 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so let's just practice that outline of the melody. So we're going to hold each first note of the bar for 4 beats. Okay, so As we add notes to this structure, try to remember this technique of the jaw being slightly further back and going forward to correct the pitch. So the next step would be to add the appoggiatura notes. So we have da dee dum da dum. This second bar is the appoggiatura. So let's add the third beat of each second bar, but only the first note of the first. And when you add the second note, just be careful that you're not slamming any fingers down or being too hard with the keys. Keep your fingers very close to the keys and gentle. Any stress here will cause a disruption in the airstream, and so we'll have an accented third beat. If you move your fingers too quickly. So nice and smooth and close to the keys will help. And it's the same technique, you're blowing slightly lower down, and as you release the sound and get softer, just keep following through the jaw up. Okay? So to help you, you could think of some words to put to that. So we have a stress and release, we have this in language. You can think of the word DAR-ling on each of those appoggiaturas, where the stress is on DAR and then you release on ling. So we don't get DAR-ling. Okay, so that's the next step. So working on the repeated notes, that's the E's in the first phrase, the F's in the second, and then G's. We need to work on showing clear repeated notes, but without cutting or making a gap in between them, continuing the sound, but to make that clear, we need to come away or diminuendo on the first of each note. So if we practice that on a G, keep the air moving out, and try not to cut the air between them. Of course we can hear two notes, but it's not as expressive when you cut the phrase like that. Okay, so again with words, oh, how I love you, not how I love you. Don't do a glottal stop. Okay, so now putting it in context, we're going to play the first note of the first bar, the fourth beat of the first bar, and then the next two notes. So it will be so now we can add in all the notes, and so that's the third beat of the first bar. And just be careful not to bump that, so don't blow louder for the third beat just because it's higher, but keep guiding the air up as you did with just the one note.